rock and roll rabbi has entered the studio.
Well, I have to tell you, I am not soft-spoken. Sorry. Some want a second reformation. I say that we have reformed too much. That is why no one agrees. We Jews, however, are different. My foot is on the neck of the new interpretations found in the Hebrew Roots movement, and I am putting pressure on it. I've been on the air 17 years, and I'm not going anywhere.
The Ani Judaism radio broadcast brought to you by your local radio affiliate as well as Apple Podcasts.
Alrighty, shalom and welcome everybody. Welcome to the Ani Judaism radio broadcast, as well as a special teaching this week for our friends down there in sunny South Florida. It is great to be with all of you here today. I hope everybody had a amazing Shavuos, and I hope that you really end up getting something out of it in terms of your Torah study and really understanding the concept of our marriage to the Father. And what we're going to be discussing today kind of goes hand in hand with all that. You know, we can easily say that everything in the Torah, everything in the Ketuvim, everything in the Nevi'im, everything in the Brit Hadashah is connected, and it definitely is. But what we're going to be discussing today really comes down to the humility of man. The humility and the love for one another that is the foundation of being a child of God. There's a lot of discussion back and forth. You hear it a lot from people in the Hebrew Roots movement who, you know, try and wage against the idea of a tithe, saying, well, I don't have cattle, I don't have, you know, I don't have a farm and all that stuff, so I'm exempt, you know. It's the way they kind of go about it. And then you have the other end, you know, you have the prosperity gospel guys that are out there trying to say, you know, well, you know, you plant this seed, you know, and all that stuff, and, you know, saying, I need somebody to send me $1,000 today, you know, and all that stuff. So you get two totally different ends of the spectrum. One of the things that I tell my students all the time is that usually when there are extremes in the way that something is perceived, that usually the truth is somewhere in the middle. It's somewhere in the middle, and there might be need to be a little bit more of a deep dive in order to be knowledgeable on the subject. We try and take things very surface level at times, and that surface level coming from a sola scriptura kind of idea in many ways will really give us 50 different interpretations, if not more. But when we look to the words of our sages, and we look at what the children of Israel did, not only during the times of Moshe Rabbeinu, when the commandments were given, but also how it is that they were fulfilled maybe in different lands, how it is that they were fulfilled, you know, during times of severe drought, in times of war, and all these things. We have to look at everything from every single angle. We see that these concepts, these biblical concepts, are very three-dimensional, and we must look at them as such, as opposed to having this two-dimensional way of seeing them. That's very important. And I see Philip is in here. Shalom, Philip. That's very important. Now, speaking of Philip, it's very interesting because um, actually, Philip is one of the reasons why I'm going to be talking about this subject because he recently got Amy and I investing in cryptocurrency. And we prayed about it and decided to go and do that. And it's interesting because I learn a lot through the past, I think I've been doing it maybe 2 or 3 weeks, possibly, doing this whole cryptocurrency, maybe 2.5 weeks or something like that. Um, and it's funny because I find myself going and checking my Coinbase app all the time, and all this stuff. We haven't invested much, and we see that sometimes you get these big gains, and sometimes it comes crashing down. Like today was a horrible day for cryptocurrency and all that stuff. And when it comes to that, I always see things through a spiritual mind and through a spiritual lens. And I'm sitting over there saying to myself, yeah, I can see how it is that people could really, do well in this particular kind of market because I was constantly looking at, different ones like Cardano and Polygon and AAVE and some of these others, and seeing their trends over the year, and it's like, oh yeah, I understand how it is that some of these pizza delivery guys never have to work again now after investing in these things. But I also see at the same time that you have these big drops that end up happening. It takes one little thing, you had Elon Musk saying things about Dogecoin and Bitcoin and all those things, and then they just kind of do this number. There's not anything that you can really predict and all that. And I was starting to see these things through a spiritual lens and realizing that our investment in the Olam Haba, our investment through tithes and offerings and things like that, that it really takes a much different form than those things, because those things are very much unpredictable. And you invest in those things to make a profit, which is different from, say, a tithe or something like that in a religious setting. How so? How's that different? Well, when we go to our sages, Pirkei Avos, I believe chapter 2 of Pirkei Avos in the Mishnah, it says within there, be not like servants who serve for the sake of receiving a reward. Instead, be like servants who serve not for receiving a reward, but may the awe of heaven be upon them. And that's really interesting because it says the awe of heaven will be upon you. The carnal mind tells us. Well, I'm kind of, kind of reminds me of that Sammy Hagar song, I'm saving my money and buying my way into heaven, And he was kind of doing a little kind of a play on all the things that were happening when he put out that album in like 91 or something like that. Because what you had were these guys that were doing some things that weren't so kosher, with people's ties and all that stuff. You had the Jim Bakers and, several others, just around that time, the Oral Roberts and all that stuff that come to find out they were not, they were kind of lining their own pockets in many ways. And so, they kind of took that on, or Sammy Hagar took that on, and so did Genesis, as well. You remember the old song, Jesus, He Knows Me, and He Knows I'm Right, So it's funny because you kind of see things as well through kind of a pop cultural lens to understand what's going on spiritually, because sometimes we need a secular gut check at times when we see that things are becoming so preposterous, so goofy that, some of these things get rather goofy. Philip says, I think our investment in the Olam Haba is the true crypto investment. Oh, absolutely. It is something that is unseen, but will pay off in the future. Absolutely. It definitely will. But the thing is that is not the reason why it is. that we invest in the Olam Haba. And investment in the Olam Haba is not solely monetary. Okay, the monetary is a part of it, absolutely, but there are there's levels of zedakah, and it's interesting because the word zedakah, which means charity, which in the Greeks kind of translated that as a tithe, and I guess we could see it both ways, yeah, but then we have to go and define that. And we'll get into what our sages say about that. Okay, in terms of this, we see that it's a form of charity. Now, the thing is that we are to take care of, first of all, the widows and the orphans, the poor. That is our obligation. We have an obligation in the Guf HaMashiach, which deals with the words of the Rebbe Melech HaMashiach Yeshua HaNotzri, when he says those who want to be first in the Olam Haba have to put themselves last. And that aligns again with the quote from Pirkei Avos. It aligns with that quote because of the fact that a person has to have their pesoniyud, their inner being, servicing Hashem. The Yetzer HaTov has to override the Yetzer Hara in every instance. Every single morning, as soon as we wake up, we realize that we're in the presence of the Master. That should put a smile on our face every single morning, that we are in the presence of the King. And through understanding that, a person, if they understand that, then they lower themselves. They lower themselves and realize that they are in this world to service the King. How amazing is that? I mean, that is so cool. You think of all the people, within our secular government, how much of a great honor it is to serve somebody who is at a high level in government. But the difference between the secular government and the Olam Haba, the government in the Olam Haba, is that our God is a public servant to us. The idea when the United States was formed is that the representatives would serve the people, that they were public servants, and it was modeled after that. But as we see now, it's not really that case, here over 200 years later. We kind of have this, we kind of see them in this very lofty place, this place of almost like a godlike status. So we almost see our politicians kind of like the people were made to see Pharaoh in Mitzrayim. It's very interesting, the correlations of that. And this is a biblical precept as well, because when it talks about the king in the Torah, in the Ketuvim, Nevi'im, Brit Hadashah, so on and so forth, the thing with the king is that his job was to serve the people and to be a person who guards the Torah of Hashem. And so this is also why it is that the sages knew that this would be problematic, that this trend that we're on now would be a trend that would be initiated at some point. Because they also then say, and I believe the very same chapter of Pirkei Avos, do not become overly familiar with politicians. And this is the reason why. Because sometimes the way that we see things through faith can be distorted through a political lens. I'm sure that you've seen many people who claim to be religious. They may put up a Shabbat Shalom on their, on their social media every week. But everything is politics. Everything. Everything is that. It's like, that's your real God. That's what you're looking at all the time. Which reminds me, I figured out a cure for the coronavirus. You ready? You ready for this? Absolute cure for the coronavirus. Turn off the cable news. There you go. You don't have to worry about it anymore. But how does this relate in investing in the Olam Haba? It's interesting because when we look at the way that the Bais HaMikdash operated, there was a court of the treasury, a chamber, if you will. And what would happen is, people would come by, pay the temple tax and the tithe, and there were other kinds as well where they would go and give, sheep, goats, and so on and so forth. Their barley, and wheat and all that stuff. But there was also the monetary as well. And we see the monetary being mentioned, even all the way back to the Torah with the matzah shekel. We have that in there. So the monetary cannot be ruled out. But one of the things that we see happening is that there was a room where people would walk into, and there would be a tzedakah box. And people would go in one at a time. They would go through one door. They would go into this room where the tzedakah box was, put in what it was that they, wanted to give. And they would go and put that in there, and then they would leave. And then the next person, as soon as they left, after they heard that door close, the next person would come in. Now, the thing about it, though, is not every single one of them would go and put stuff in. In all honesty, you have no clue if the person in front of you or behind you or even a family member who's with you put stuff in or took stuff out. The taking stuff out, these people were not stealing. Instead, the tzedakah box was there to serve those who were in need. And we have this concept with two letters of the Torah, or the two letters of the Hebrew Aleph base, the Gimel and the Dalet. The thing that is interesting is one of the things that you notice with the Gimel is that it kind of looks like a person. And it has its foot extended towards that of the Dalet. When you go Aleph, Base, Gimel, Dalet, and so on down the line. It looks like it has a foot extended to it. This is in relation to the Gal and the Dal. It's interesting because both have the Lamed. One is Gimel Lamed. The other one is Dalet Lamed. And so not only is it synchronized in the Hebrew Aleph base with the Gimel and the Dalet, and ends with the Lamed. Both of them have the same Nakud, but one is a giver, the other one is a receiver. And our sages say this about this. They say that the job of the Gal is to extend his foot to the Dal. That huge reward is given to that of both. Not only does the Dalit receive what is being given in terms of the tzedakah, but also the Gimel receives by being able to fulfill a mitzvah, by giving to the person who is in need. And so this is amazing. When we look at economy in today's time, we see this, this whole discombobulated way of seeing it. This whole discombobulated way of seeing it. It's interesting. Amy and I are about to get married, and the thing I always joke around with her, and I do this jokingly. It's not a part of her personality or anything like that, so don't read too much into this. But I always joke with her. I say, what's mine is yours, and what's yours is yours. I just thought you guys could use a little bit of a laugh there, but it's something that when we look at the words of the sages in terms of this as well, we say, okay, well, how are we supposed to go about giving tzedakah? How are we supposed to go about this? What's the proper way of doing tzedakah? How do we do it right? First of all, we have to make sure that if we're going to give to tzedakah, that there are a multiplicity of ways of going about it. First of all, the widows, the orphans, the poor, anyone who's in need. Okay? That is top priority. That is top above anything else. Many of us, we also give to certain ministries. That's a little bit lower on the totem pole than those. First of all, widows, orphans, those who are in need, and the poor. Okay? Those should be our top priority. Why? Because they're not giving us anything. We're not receiving anything back. You know, if you're given to a religious organization, you take, for instance, they'll send you a magazine, or they send you a CD, or they'll send you, some sort of lesson every week or something like that. That really, you're kind of getting something, and plus you're getting the tax benefit of that as well, because you can go and report that, especially if they're 501c3. So the thing about it, though, is that even whatever it is that you give, you're getting back anyway, in financial, terms, in terms of Olam Haba, you're getting it back. So you're really not gaining anything in Olam Haba, because it's like, oh, well, I'm paying this tzedakah in order to receive this. You can kind of throw that out the window in many ways, okay? So even though, we like it when people go to anijudaism.com and click on the PayPal button, the thing about it, though, is I have to be honest with you and tell you that is not how you get a lofty place in the Olam Haba, by going and doing that. Instead, you go and you see somebody who's really in need. Somebody, who is down on their luck. Somebody who is stressed about their situation. Somebody who is really having a hard time. They are your first priority. They are your first priority. And our sages say that if we do it in secret, like they don't know where the heck it came from. There was something that happened in our community over here. First of all, that is the best kind of tzedakah right there. People don't know where in the world that it came from. A convenience store I used to work at, there was a big news article in the local newspaper here. There's a homeless guy that had this dog, and this dog would go with him, and it was kind of an emotional support thing for him. And he loved this dog, and the dog's name was DJ. Now, this convenience store that I used to manage and work at, I would say about 80% of the people that came in there were either drug addicts, alcoholics. It was on the bad side of town, okay? Well, him and his dog were outside of this convenience store, and the dog barked at somebody, this guy that was going in there to get whatever it was he was getting, and the guy walked out. The dog wasn't threatening him or anything. It was just kind of the dog's way of speaking to people. He goes and pulls out a gun and shoots the dog in the back 2 times. He was later arrested and given bond. Disgusting. Disgusting. We know that the Torah says that, a person of great humility and who is connected with Hashem is going to take care of their animals before they take care of themselves. This person we see has given himself to the Sedra Achra just by his actions, by treating an animal in the way that he has. But what happened was, this devastated that homeless man that had this dog. Devastated him. And so what happened was, there was a lady in the community that I believe works at one of the banks or something like that. But they said you can come by the bank and go, and we have a collection that we're, building up to give to this gentleman. And I'm saying to myself, that is the most amazing piece of tzedakah right there. because it's not something that you go and fill out a tax form for. It's not something that you report to get back in the Olam Hazeh. It's not something that is. It's not. Hey, look at what I did. I just gave X amounts to this person. It was all anonymous. That right there, those people that did that for this gentleman are on a high mandraga in the eyes of Hashem for going and simply doing that. We tend to go and see people sadly, and we need to break ourselves of this, that those who have a lofty place in the Olam Haba are only going to be the ones that uphold some sort of variation of how it is that you see the Torah. We need to get out of this mindset. Because the thing is, it's interesting that Yeshua says that the Malchut HaShamayim, the kingdom of heaven, is today within you. What does that mean? Are we going to become Sadducees and say, there is no Olam Haba, there is no Malchut HaShamayim? Oh, Chash v'Shalom, God forbid. God forbid. That is not what we're saying. Instead, what he is saying is that we, in many ways, are a reflection of the place that we will be placed, what level in the Olam Haba. A person who does something to be recognized for doing something, to get your name on a plaque somewhere, or to have a building named after you or something like that. That's, the thing about this, you can say, oh, well, they're curing cancer or something like that. Yo, great thing, of course. But the thing about it, though, is they're saying, I want my name associated with that. I'm not saying it's a bad thing what they're doing, that they're helping, an organization that is wanting to do this, that, or the other. But the thing about it, though, is they want their name associated with the merit of others. This is something that we are warned of in Matthew 23. We are warned about this often. Often. The loftiest place, as we said, according to Chazal, in terms of tzedakah, is to not let anybody know that it came from you. Don't speak about it to anybody. Don't speak about it to your wife. Don't speak about it to your girlfriend. Don't speak about it to your friends. You just do it, and you forget about it. This is something that is within you. This is within yourself, because God, Ruach HaKodesh, is moving within you and is residing within you. For one of the attributes of Ruach HaKodesh is comfort. Is it self-comfort? There is some self-comfort that comes from tzedakah, but that's not the reason why we do it. Remember when the synagogue was open, for instance, there'd be individuals that would come in, that were coming in for counseling, and I'd sit down and, I can honestly see that they were not in the right state of mind to be able to listen to anything that I had to say. It's no fault of their own. They were just so worked up over something that it was like, it's almost like they needed validation, or they, were going to forget, because how, many of you have probably had really high anxiety. You know how your mind works in those things. The thing I would do each and every single time is I would take a couple of dollars out of my wallet, and I'd say, take this and go and find somebody who's in need. Find somebody whom it is you need to give tzedakah to, and then come back and we'll discuss your problem. 100 times. 100 times out of 100, they would come back, and it'd be a totally different person when they would come back. they were more at ease because there is something that happens when the gimel goes and extends its foot to the dalet, as we discussed before, with the gal and the dal. And so I realized that that was a good thing to do because of the fact that in that instant, for that time when doing this, they were connected to Hashem in a higher way because they helped somebody. And they would say, well, where do I find these people? Oh, well, it's easy. Go to, a gas station. Just offer to pay for somebody's gas. Or if you're hungry, go and get yourself something to eat and say, hey, take this and put this toward the person that's behind me or something like that. It's very easy to do. It's very easy to do. So the thing is that if we are doing zedakah in a way of purity and not for this, what am I going to get in return? Either in the Olam Hazeh or in the Olam Haba, we will be seen as doing so in a very lofty manner from that of Hashem. Sometimes there's no getting around this. The sages understood this. Sometimes it is a person's going to see your face. They're going to know your name. Okay? So what happens is the second level, the second highest level of tzedakah is of going and doing something for somebody, going and giving them the tzedakah that it is that they need, but saying to them, don't thank me for this. Because if you do, then it's, I would be expecting something in return. Giving a loan is not tzedakah. Okay, keep that in mind as well. You tell them, don't thank me, don't tell anybody about this, don't praise me for it, none of this. That is the second highest level because the person is not doing it for the reason of recognition. That's one of the big things. The final is, and this always made me feel weird, in any Jewish synagogues, we have the tzedakah box. We don't go and take up an offering on Shabbos. We don't go and pass around a plate. I know that many individuals have gotten this from their former religious institution, that, the basket is taken, the usher is going to take the basket, they pass it around the pews, and then they bring it back, and everybody's sitting up there going, I wonder what they're putting in there. Are they putting anything in there? Oh, I noticed that Mr. or Mrs. So-and-so didn't put anything in the basket that were sitting right next to me. And the thing is that you have the little envelope, you put your name on the envelope so it's known that so-and-so goes and does this. And it just puts you in a very odd position. It's almost like it's weird because the fact that it's on display for everybody. And if you're one of those people that has to put their name on there and all this stuff, put it in the envelope with the name on there so that they know where it came from, then it's better off if you didn't do it at all, in all honesty. Seriously. But see, the thing is that you will never see this being done in a actual Jewish synagogue. Instead, the tzedakah box is sitting outside. It's out there all week. People can come through any time of the week. They can go to counseling. The tzedakah box is out there or what have you. They may come see the rabbi. The tzedakah box is out there. They might see the rebbitzin. The tzedakah box is out there. They may go to a class. The tzedakah box is out there. People go out there and support the community in the synagogue through that. But it's not one of those things to where we're going to have a spectacle. We're going to take 10 minutes and have a spectacle of why it is that you need to be going and giving to the... that's just... First of all, there's a little bit of sin that's involved within that. If a person knows it is sin, first of all. To put that pressure onto people and to say that, okay, we're all going to watch and see what it is that you do, and all that stuff, and then try and guilt you into it beforehand, that is very dishonest. Especially when you go and guarantee that, it's not by if Ruach HaKodesh is dwelling within you, but rather what it is that you put in that little basket right there, what you put in there is going to determine if you're going to be blessed. That is a marketing ploy. That's what that is, in all honesty. That's essentially what it is. Now, the thing about it, though, is what about the individual that, say, for instance, doesn't have a job, doesn't even have a dime to his name? Doesn't even have a dime to his name. And the thing about it, though, is that he wants to fulfill the mitzvahs of Zercha. He wants to do that. It's interesting because when you see Yeshua talk about the woman that gave very little as opposed to these people that were given mountains and mountains and mountains and all that stuff, he pointed to her as being the one who gave far more than any of them. Hopefully you remember what it is that he said. The reason why she had that lofty place in the Olam Haba, by giving that very little, because of the fact that basically said the same thing that our sages said, that we talked about earlier. But the person that doesn't have anything is a person that does have skills in some way. Each and every single one of us have Nishmat Chaim, the breath of life, that divine spark that God has put within us, the thing that makes us all unique. There is something that we contribute to the Guf HaMashiach that will help other individuals. One of the things I do, I don't know if you guys know this or not, but I build websites for people. And the thing is that I've seen websites that aren't quite as good as the ones that I build, and people are paying thousands of dollars for these things. My aunt came to me, as a matter of fact, and was wanting to go and put together a website for her new business that she's doing. It's going to be online dog training. And she, was needing a website for that. And she got quotes from quite a few people, and they're like, okay, $4,000 just baseline to get it started. And then you're going to pay me $120 every month and all this stuff. And I said, Margaret, you're being ripped off here. You're being ripped off. I said, I can do it for you at my cost. I'm not going to say what my cost is, but, I make a decent profit out of going and building websites. But even if I'm not giving somebody a deal, it's only $150 a year. Any kind of updates they need done, any kind of things they need changed on there, I do it for them throughout the entire year. For only $150, we get the URL. There's no hidden costs or any of that stuff. That's one of the things that, when I was out of work several years ago, for a couple of months, I put all my focus into building these websites for people, to not only to provide for myself, but also at the same time to be able to help people not be taken advantage of. Because some of these people, it's crazy. I mean, some of the figures I was hearing, it's like, oh yeah, I paid $5,000 for my website, and I'm paying for an extra $400 a year, and it's like, well, that's ridiculous. Because I know what it costs me to do it, and I know how easy it is to do. I said, these people are taking total advantage of you, and that's happening with a lot of ministries. And, going and having that business really sustained me for those several months that I was out of work. So it all comes down to the fact that doing something like that, or even if I was able to do something for somebody for free based upon some sort of knowledge that I had on something. I was helping a friend that needed to learn audio and video stuff. That stuff I knew. So I'd go over there and say, okay, you need this, you need that, and I'd go and help them out with those things. Those things because of the fact that I was there to try and help my friend who had a rivaling radio show to mine, but didn't know how to do this stuff from at home. I was going and showing him how it is that I got it, the equipment that I had, how to use the equipment, and all that stuff. There was something. This is one of the things that God had taught me how to do. Something that, if you need to know how to do things on the cheap but have it sound good and have it look somewhat decent, Christopher's your guy, and so I'd go and help him out with that, for free, and say, okay, this is what we're gonna do. I'm gonna help you and produce your show for you the first couple of times, and so that it is that you can learn how to do it yourself, and it greatly benefited him. So we all have, even if we don't have anything, we have that nishmat chaim, and we have to use it for the good. Use it for the good, and that can be a way of fulfilling zeracha if it is that you do not have the means to say, go and tithe or something like that. The thing about it though is that I know that I don't make a lot of work. I have enough to pay the bills and all that stuff, and then able to get the girls at work lunch and all of that stuff. Get stuff for Amy and Jess over there. A couple of days of the week, and so. The thing about it though is that anything that I have left over is stuff that I do to help others. I don't say who, I don't say what it is I do, but some of the things you can see. Like on, for instance, after I get done here, I got to do a video on my other channel, the Guitar Rabbi, and one of the things we've done is given away guitar pedals to those who need them. I find really diamond in the rough stuff that you can get really cheap. For instance, we gave away, where is it? Do I have it on the desk here? No, I do not. Okay. We gave away a noise gate and a wah pedal. I think the wah pedal was like $15, and I was able to find a good one for $15, and then a noise gate, and it was so cool because everybody who's ended up winning these things in these little contests that we've given these things away, it's been so neat because it always ends up going to somebody who's brand new, who doesn't own any pedals. It's not just somebody who's collecting gear. It's something that they really needed. And so I say Baruch Hashem for that. So we do things like that as well. And it's one of those things that your Nishmat Chaim is going to draw you to certain people. There's certain people that it is that you are in contact with that most others aren't. There's ways that you can help them that other people cannot. And that's one of the things that makes the Guf HaMashiach absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing if it is functioning in the way that it's meant to function. Through the way of being halakhically kosher. And being halakhically kosher doesn't mean that we need to browbeat somebody into being halakhically kosher. I'll tell you, people got enough of that garbage from the Hebrew Roots movement. Where everybody sucks. Everybody has to go and talk about how everybody else sucks. That they are the only ones who get it right. It's like you get a bunch of lone wolves into one group. And it's no wonder so many of them end up leaving faith altogether or going to Islam or, what have you. It's a very destructful thing. The Guf HaMashiach, we may disagree in the Guf HaMashiach. We may disagree theologically with our Christian brethren, but the thing about though is they worship the same God. They have the same Messiah as it is that we do. We just see things differently. We connect with God in a different way. In order to find your Nishmat Chaim and to be able to give to Zeracha in a kosher way, you first of all have to understand that. You have to understand that. Because if you encapsulate those things, if you encapsulate those attributes, then you know that you are living for Hashem and you fear Him more. You love Hashem more, you fear Him more. And through that love and that fear is where our zedachah comes from. Okay? I want to thank all of you for joining me here today. I want to thank all of you, for going and listening to this later on in the audio version on the radio or through Apple Podcasts and TuneIn Radio. Some of the various places in which you can hear that, or watching this on, say, for instance, Vimeo, YouTube, or Ani Judaism Television on your Roku. Absolutely free. Go and check it out. You got a Roku? Go and get Ani Judaism TV. It's absolutely free. So go and check that out. All right? So shalom bracha, peace and a blessing. Thank you very much. Shalom.